and welcome to Workshopping the Workshop, Iterative Instructional Design and Undergraduate Focused Programming. I'm Angela Perkins, Research and Instruction Librarian at Lafayette College Libraries, and I'm here with my colleague Janna Avon, Digital Initiatives Librarian, and we're both here at Skillman Library. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the background of the Digital Humanities Summer Scholars Idea Incubator and the Digital Humanities Summer Scholars Program, DHSS, and how we came to applying iterative design to it, and then we'll discuss a little bit about some concepts that came out of that. Lafayette is a small liberal arts college of about 2,600 students, and it definitely is a campus that prioritizes interdisciplinary scholarship, especially humanities scholarship. And so let me tell you a bit about DHSS, the Digital Humanities Summer Scholars Program. I've been directing the program since about 2018, and it's structured as a 6-week intensive where students learn about how to conduct original research, and also is an introduction to DH methods and methodology. And so that means that they're learning the craft of research, so basic concepts like how to do a literature review, how to do an annotated bibliography, how to craft a research question, but also DH concepts like text analysis, topic modeling, mapping, GIS, etc. And they meet often to do this in order to absorb how to get at this through classes and workshops 2 times a day.
Angela, can you talk a little bit more about the application process?
Yes, so it's a competitive program. They go through a rigorous application process. I start the application process at the start of the year in January, and I send out a call for proposal, and they must interview with me before they are even able to apply. This past year, we had about 28 interviews, 7 scholars were chosen out of 23 applicants, and it's an increasingly popular program that, yes, it's not easy to get into, and I assemble a committee of my colleagues to help me choose. And that's kind of where the DHSS Idea Incubator was born, was through the kind of realization of looking at these applications that all the students, regardless of whether or not they were going to be in the DHSS program, were all interested in learning a bit about how to conduct research. And also they were weak in their understanding of DH and data and application of data to research projects. So we wanted to help them with that as well. And it's a different program from DHSS, and it's really quite an interesting set of workshops. As you can see, there are 4 workshops that start to introduce the students to these things, including things like writing a research proposal, and also a bit about research data management. And so the workshop structure that we'll go into this a bit later in the slides, but the structure as it stood in the last iteration of the DHSS Idea Incubator were lectures embedded as content on a Scalar site created by us. And in the synchronous workshops, it was a general discussion of the content and the previous homework. We also did group work on problems that applied to the lecture, and we talked a bit more about what they were going to do next as far as homework goes.
Right. So the thing that's kind of unique about the Idea Incubator is that it's open registration. So anybody who's interested in attending it is welcome to. But the other thing that is kind of unique about it is that we put our first version of it together within probably about 3 weeks. And part of how we were able to do that is because we were applying a concept called iterative design. So iterative design is a repeating cycle of designing, prototyping, testing, analyzing, and refining the thing that you were trying to make. It's an approach to programming initially, and it was popularized with the rise of user experience design. And what's great about it is that it is a flexible and agile approach that can be applied to all design work, including instructional design. Why it might be of interest and why it was of interest to us is that it has a lower initial investment of time and resources between concept and delivery. And the reason for this is because it's a lower stakes and lower pressure environment. So you don't have as much need to meet traditional markers of success, because what you're doing is you are developing and testing a model. You're not delivering a finished product or service. The idea that it's imperfect is built into it and is part of what you're trying to get through. So it's an experiential learning experience in its way for us as designers. It empowers you to be really responsive to emerging needs, as well as empowers you to make adjustments and improvements based on the response and feedback that you're getting. So we had a need that we had identified during the application process for Digital Humanities Summer Scholars. And we had a need from the pandemic that was, we had a bunch of students who did not have any programming available to them because everything had been shut down. So what was a way in which we could provide something that addressed this in a quick and responsive way? And then how can we make it better? Because we were experimenting, it was a brand new thing. So in practice, we started with identifying our service gap, which led us to the conceptualization of the Idea Incubator. And version 1 was piloted in January of 2021, which is when our college has a 3-week gap period that was actually extended this year because we pushed back the start of our winter semester. So we had this chunk of time and we had this idea and we threw them together. And we took a lot of notes. So we did our best with the resources that we had available to them, which is ourselves and our knowledge. And we paid attention to how students responded to ideas and to activities that we proposed. And we asked the students for oral feedback during the last session so that we could apply that in future iterations. The major issues were time. So our first version of this was a 3-hour lecture, or a 3-hour chunk of time that was like an hour discussion, an hour lecture, an hour discussion, which is a lot. Synchronicity was an issue. We had students in different time zones. We had students with different home obligations. Internet stability was an issue. Again, we had international students. We had students who were living in rural areas. I personally just have a bad internet service provider. And then, of course, we had the issue of exhaustion. Everyone was very tired. Everyone's still very tired. That is to be expected. And 3 hours is a really long time. So some adjustments that we made between version 1 and version 2 were reconfiguring the content delivery to a hybrid model. So instead of everything being live, part of it is available online asynchronously and accessed independently. And then we also made some tweaks to how we delivered different types of assignments. Our second version ran in May of 2021 and was piggybacked directly to the 2021 Digital Humanities Summer Scholars Program. So all of the students who participated in that were members of the Idea Incubator in this year. The changes were very well received, particularly the piece of pulling out the lecture and putting that asynchronously on the website. We also experimented with some short quizzes to boost information retention. At the end of that, we ran a survey of all previous participants to solicit feedback. We offered them a $5 thank you, and that went really, really well. We got a lot of responses thanks to that. So highly encourage bribing your students. We also confirmed a lot of our working assumptions around the value of our content, which was a really, really great feeling. And we confirmed our assumptions around the general instructional design of the session, which is a focus on problem solving and working through ideas in real time with our peers and our colleagues. Version 3 is currently in development for January of 2022. We are unsure at this time whether or not we will be delivering it remotely or in person. There's an interest in person, but realistically, our students are not frequently on campus during the winter break. They're usually at home, so delivering it remotely will allow us to invite more people in. Some adjustments that we're making is we're adding more video recording. So we had been delivering the content as pure text, but this will allow us to give a couple different options to it. We're going to work on more quizzes. We're developing some supplemental reading lists. So we synthesize a lot of information. We don't assign any readings, but there's been a request for that. We're experimenting with smaller discussion groups so that people have more time to talk and we can invite more people in. That has other drawbacks of, we're not able to have everybody in the room together. So we'll have to experiment with that and see what works best and what gives us the best experience. And then we are also working on finding the right balance between the time needed to effectively deliver our content and the limited availability of time and attention from our students. So that's a continued work in progress. Moving on to a little bit of a discussion portion here, if you want to take it away, Angela.
Sure. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the impact of the Idea Incubator just on the DHSS program itself, and then just sort of, in the work that we do in the library, especially, research with research and instruction. So I found that the Idea Incubator has been really positive for those students who have become summer scholars, and, kind of bridging that gap between kind of ending the spring semester with exams and just sort of trying to close out the year, and then getting into a research mindset, like into a frame of, okay, now I'm going to start working on my digital project and start thinking about my research question. And so I found that this year in doing so that I made the Idea Incubator mandatory for those DHSS 2021 students. And they really benefited a lot from being able to, in advance of the 6 week program, to work a bit on their research projects and also get a research framework in place that they had some idea of how they might effectively and ably conduct their research, and it made a real impact on their just starting off. And then when it came to just in general, I think it's really I think that the Idea Incubator has had good word of mouth among the general student population. Those who are really interested in also learning concepts of how to conduct independent research have come to us and expressed interest in doing this program because of the availability of something like this, where you don't have to apply to it, and it's just an easy way to get into learning about research. So, and then as far as transferability of the work, that's more about me and Janna and our professional development. And it's been the skills that we have come to independently learn have been really helpful with the incubator. And I think that we also have gained skills in areas of teaching, critical thinking, teaching, there's a lot of information literacy involved, just teaching the general aspects of how to conduct good research. We've been growing in different types of areas, including delivery of information. We're learning a lot about that. So it's been really good in that arena.
Yeah. For more information on kind of any of the topics that we've discussed today, we do have some resources available, some books that we like on digital humanities, on instructional design, on iterative design, as well as some references to other articles and media that Angela and I have co-authored and participated in that talk a little bit more in depth about the Idea Incubator, as well as the Digital Humanities Summer Scholars. So please check all of those out. You can download that information from the slide deck. And please feel more than welcome to drop us a line if you have any questions or anything that you would like to discuss. Thank you so much for your time and your attention today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.